6 years. Courtney Clenney pled guilty to manslaughter with a deadly weapon in the death of Christian Obumseli. She stabbed him in the chest, he died, and the negotiated prison sentence was 6 years. Now, here's the number that made me stop. In Florida, aggravated animal cruelty carries up to 5 years in prison. Think about that. 6 years for the death of a human being, up to 5 years for aggravated animal cruelty. Now, before somebody deliberately misunderstands what I'm saying, no, these are not the same legal mechanisms. One is a negotiated sentence, and the other is a statutory maximum. I'm comparing the outputs, though, because systems communicate through consequences, and when the punishment imposed for the unlawful taking of a human life is just 1 year shy of the maximum Florida authorized for the cruel death of an animal, I think we're entitled to ask, how seriously does the system take the death of Christian Obumseli, a black man? And before the plea was announced, I was watching one of my favorite legal experts. She had been following this case for years. Listen to what she expected.
I do have a poll up in chat of how long you think she's going to get. We were talking about the layers of murder in criminology. So you have first-degree murder, second-degree murder, manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter. Each carries different weights of time that it comes with. So we're going to see where we land. I mean, it's crazy. And the reason why I'm in the manslaughter space, because that's my vote, because what happened with Alicia? You know, Alicia only got what, 10, 15? I think it was 15. And she ain't pull a trigger or stab anybody, you know? So I think we're going to land somewhere around there.
So she wasn't expecting 6 years. And then the prosecutor stood up and told the court exactly what Courtney was pleading to. Listen carefully to both numbers.
Certainly with Mr. Hanfield, and certainly when there's any agreement, no one is happy at the end of this, and we understand that. But the agreement that the state is willing to accept is that the defendant would be adjudicated guilty. She'll be sentenced to 6 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of reporting probation. As part of her probation, she must complete a mental health evaluation and treatment. There's a time frame in which she is to complete it as part of the plea agreement. Substance abuse evaluation and treatment, that's also a time constraint that's going to be in the agreement. And then it's 60 days, Your Honor. And then
up to 30 years, but the system produced 6. And listen to the reaction.
The batter's intervention program. If she does violate...
Oh, shit. This girl threw a knife at somebody. They're giving her 6 years, and she's already done 3, and 5 years of fucking probation. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
That reaction matters because this isn't somebody seeing a criminal case for the first time. This is a lawyer who has watched this case develop, and even she was stunned at the output. So that's where my analysis starts, because I'm not a lawyer and I'm not pretending to be one. This is applied social physics. The legal question is, was this plea agreement permissible? My question is, what kind of system produces 6 years as an acceptable output? Approximately the same penalty as cruelly deleting a dog. Most people just look at the final number. I don't, because the sentence is the last step in a much larger process. Think about the pathway: violent incident, police interpretation, arrest, charging, self-defense claim, prosecutorial discretion, plea negotiation, conviction, sentence, and then the actual time served. That's the system. And small differences at each decision-making node can compound. A little bit more sympathy here, a more favorable interpretation there, a lesser charge, a stronger mitigation argument, a better plea, a shorter sentence, No individual decision has to look outrageous, but stack enough of those favorable decisions together and the output can become a radically different thing. That's how complex systems behave. And that's why I keep coming back to these numbers: 6 years versus 5 years. Again, I'm not saying that Florida law has officially declared that a black man's life is equal to that of a dog. I'm saying that a system produces signals. Punishment is one of those signals. Punishment communicates how serious was this? How strongly do we condemn it? How much social cost follows this behavior? So when a black man is dead and the negotiated prison sentence is 6 years, while aggravated animal cruelty, deleting a dog, can expose someone to as much as 5 years, that creates a disturbing symbolic comparison. And you don't make that comparison disappear by saying, well, technically the statutes are different, dude. Of course they're different. That's not the point. The point is, what does the outcome communicate? One of the arguments people make whenever discussing female violence is that it's difficult to know what happens inside of an abusive relationship. Okay, fair enough. But this case isn't entirely based on competing stories. There was a video, and the lawyer I'm using in this video has reviewed that footage long before today's plea deal. Listen to how she describes it.
Now, they got into a fight in that elevator, and that is one of the biggest pieces of evidence that cooks her if she took this to trial, because she was saying that it was self-defense. I've shown that video many times on this channel, and that video does get you in trouble as a content creator, because what it does is it talks about showing violence, which is, I guess, against YouTube policy. But she was like molly-whopping dude in the elevator. It was bad. You know what I mean? Like, she was clearly the aggressor. He had braids. She's like pulling on his hair, punching him in the head, all types of crazy shit.
That's important because the problem isn't merely that female violence can be difficult to detect. This case raises a more uncomfortable possibility. Female violence can be visible and still struggle to occupy the same moral category as male violence. That's where things get interesting. Society knows exactly how to process male aggression. If a man punches his girlfriend, he's dangerous. If a man terrorizes his woman, he's abusive. If a man deletes her, well, we know how that goes. He did this. We might investigate why, but the conduct belongs to him. Now, watch what frequently happens when a woman becomes violent. The causal question changes. Instead of why did she do that, we often move towards what happened to her. Was she frightened? Was she traumatized? Was she provoked? Was she reacting? Was he abusive? Those can all be legitimate questions, but notice the asymmetry. Male violence becomes the explanation. Female violence becomes something requiring an explanation. That changes how people interpret identical behavior. I call that agency asymmetry. The man receives agency, the woman receives context, and context can become mitigation. Her emotional state, her relationship history, her trauma, her fear, her substance use, her mental health. Again, sometimes this can be applied correctly, but if one class of defendant receives substantially more contextualization, the aggregate outputs will eventually diverge, and the empirical research suggests that they do. Federal sentencing research has repeatedly found significant gender disparities favoring female defendants. And some of the largest differences don't emerge at the judge's final sentence. They emerge upstream in charging, plea bargains, incarceration decisions. That's the system's point. The final sentencing may simply be the visible result of earlier decisions. An agency doesn't disappear after the violent act. What someone does afterwards tells us something too. The legal commentator went through what happened after Kristen was stabbed.
The recording of it, they're fighting, they're yelling at each other, and somehow she thought it was a good idea to go and get a knife. Okay, she got a knife saying that she was defending herself because he allegedly was hitting her. So she takes this knife and says, because we watched a police interrogation video, that she flung the knife at him. Flung, not stabbed. She flung it, and she didn't think it was going to hit a vital artery, hits his heart, and he passes out. Here's what she did after this knife pierces this man. She called her mama. She called her mother. You see that woman next to her dad? She called her mom. They spoke on the phone for 6 minutes before she called 911. 6 minutes. That's likely Christian side of the family. 6 minutes. And call for help. And then when you listen to the 911 call, you can hear Christian in the background saying, "I can't feel my arm."
Think about that. Christian had been stabbed. He's still alive. And according to the timeline discussed in the case, the immediate response was not simply call 911. Now listen to how the lawyer revisited the point later.
There are some other pieces. That 911 call is crazy. The fact that you didn't call for help right away is crazy to me. The first thing you do, somebody bleeding out on the floor, you call your mama? You called your mom? Out of all things that you can do, you called your mom? So I thought people were going to throw her under the jail. Because remember, we just watched.
And after the hearing, she came back to it again.
Even if you're having a domestic dispute, if somebody is bleeding out on the floor, the first thing you do is you pick up the phone and you call for help. She picked up the phone and called her mom. And that's the sentence that she got.
That matters because accountability means treating decisions as decisions. You can't just say that women have agency only when agency produces benefits. Agency has to survive contact with consequences. Christian Obumseli was a black man, and stereotypes don't operate one at a time. They interact. Women can enter a conflict with cultural presumption of vulnerability. Black men can enter conflict with cultural presumption of threat. Put those two prior things together. Woman equals vulnerability, black man equals threat. Now introduce ambiguity. His anger could be interpreted as danger. Her anger can be interpreted as fear. His physicality can become threatening. Her violence can become reactive. His behavior becomes causal. Her behavior becomes contextual. I'm not telling you that I can read the mind of every prosecutor, judge, investigator, or defense attorney in this case. I can't. That's not analysis. That's guessing. Applied social physics deals in probabilities and incentives. The question is, does changing the identity of the people change how behavior gets interpreted? And if it does that change downstream outcomes? That's the question. Because 6 years wasn't the end of the hearing. The prosecution then raised the issue of whether Courtney could one day financially profit from Christian's death. Listen to this.
And it's important that nobody who is a convicted murderer to killing someone, if someone is convicted of murder, they are not to financially benefit as a result of that. That's Florida Statute 944.512. It's effectively our iteration of the Son of Sam law, but it is a statutory lien that attaches automatically, and if the Attorney General's office were to decide to seek some form of lien or process in that, then that we would be supporting them in that. We do believe that nobody should benefit financially from murdering somebody. So we will provide any evidence that they request. We'll work hand in hand with the Attorney General's office if they so seek to do some form of lien or some financial proceeding against Ms. Clenney, understanding that she will be released at some point and may seek to financially benefit as a result of this. But it's not part of the plea agreement, but it is something that attaches automatically.
All right. Mr. Gray, so I'll hear from you as to the plea agreement in its written form. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct, Judge, and all the conditions and all the agreements are contained within that document. Outside the four corners of those multiple page document, we do not agree that number 944.512 is constitutional. We reserve our right to challenge that.
At this point, that's not part of this proceeding. It attaches automatically. It is constitutional. It is the law. What they do with subsequent hearings is to them. But as we stand here today, because it does attach, I'm just simply announcing that we will work hand in hand with the Attorney General's office. It needs no further discussion, but the fact is that no one should financially benefit from murdering somebody.
Well, Judge, I do have the right to speak on my client's behalf, and so I'm going to put on the record that we believe that statute's unconstitutional. It's not an issue.
Now listen to the legal expert's reaction.
For the plea agreement,
Oh my God. Do y'all hear this? So these prosecutors are terrible. So not only are they giving her like the lightest outcome possible, they are trying to bar her from financially gaining from her experience in this case. They don't want her to financially benefit from it, meaning they don't want her to do interviews. They don't want her to do documentaries. They don't want her ass back on OnlyFans killing ninjas. They don't want that to happen. Okay. Her defense attorney is like, no, that's unconstitutional. What in the hell are we? This is going to be a crazy day.
And this is where we leave ordinary criminal commentary completely, because now I see an incentive design problem. Potentially violence, death, national attention, infamy, short prison term, release, interviews, documentaries, books, and money. Now, I'm not saying that someone enters a domestic dispute calculating a future Netflix deal. That's absurd. I'm saying systems create incentives even when nobody consciously designs them. Notoriety becomes attention. Attention can become status. Status can become money. That's a feedback structure. After the hearing ended, she tried to make sense of what she just heard.
Okay, chat, from what I can see, that concludes the hearing. What do we have? You have Miss Courtney Clenney threw a knife at her boyfriend. Allegedly, she flung it. We were going to have a blood spatter expert, a knife throwing expert, and many other experts at this trial, if we landed in trial, to disprove what she was saying, that she did not, in fact, fling it. She stabbed him. What did we just watch? You know, I talked about this on my Fox News interview. A lot of people didn't agree with it, but that's just how the law works. When it comes to sentencing and conviction, you look at murder in different categories. Murder in the first degree, second degree, and then manslaughter is at the bottom. And there's two types of manslaughter: voluntary manslaughter and involuntary manslaughter. That's the way they teach us in law school. Some states just bucket manslaughter, and I believe Florida is one of them. Now, if you remember, Alicia Andrews got convicted on manslaughter, although in the Julio matter, she did not pull a trigger. She did not, kill Julio herself, but she still got manslaughter. It is remarkable to me that Alicia Andrews got more time than this girl. Can y'all believe that? Alicia Andrews got more time than Courtney Clenney. So the judge read the plea deal out loud. If you're watching in the future, I'm going to cut this up so you guys can see it, but here's the final synopsis. The plea deal included up to 30 years in the state of Florida for manslaughter, right? However, they agreed upon 6 years for manslaughter and 5 years of probation. Do y'all know that Young Thug has way more probation than this girl? Young Thug got 30 years of probation. She has 5.
Again, I'm not using another case to claim identical facts. Every case has its own evidence. I'm showing you something different. Expectation versus output. Even somebody who understands criminal law and followed the evidence closely expected substantially more than 6 years. That doesn't prove bias, but it does tell us that the output is unusual enough for us to interrogate it. AV also raised another possible explanation. She discussed a related wrongful death case and speculated that the civil settlement could have had an influence on the family's willingness to accept the resolution in the criminal case. But importantly, she wanted to qualify that idea, and she said that she wanted to review the paperwork before settling in on that with confidence.
Because remember, there is a civil case not attached to this, but related, wrongful death, where they're suing her and the building. My understanding, and I have to look through the filing before I say this with conviction, my understanding is that a settlement in that case was reached before this plea deal. That is why I suspect that it is so light. Because if her side is coming out and giving them millions or whatever for wrongful death, then that is likely the reason for this light sentence. Do you ever see this? Sometimes you do. Is it right? No. If you, it don't matter what type of money is attached to it. But as soon as I saw the family say that they've been working with the DA's office to get to a resolution with her, right? You have two different matters here. That's interesting. That's interesting. You don't see it every day. But, the mom said there ain't no amount of, like nothing, no plea deal, none of that, no sentence can bring my son back. So
I'm not presenting that as fact. It's a hypothesis worth investigating. And this is actually an important analytical discipline. Don't force every new fact into your theory. If the civil suit materially influences the plea, that's a part of the system too. Family interest, civil compensation, trial risk, closure, prosecutorial discretion. All of these variables can influence an output. Systems analysis isn't about pretending one variable explains everything. It's about identifying all the variables. Then AV raises the obvious next question. What happens when Courtney is no longer incarcerated?
And she plans to still profit off of this matter. Because remember, the prosecution said that they're going to go all the way up to the attorney general if they have to. She should not profit off of a murder. And then the defense actually said like they're objecting to it. They're going to fight that because it's against her rights or something like that. But remember, all you can control is what happens in Florida. What if she moves back to Texas? She's gonna do interviews and stuff. And that's what's so sad about this, because when you're in jail, your hands are tied. You can't really say anything or share your side of the story. She's gonna come out and do all this stuff and I can see it. It's gonna happen. Because while she's been in there, people have been making true crime videos about this girl, okay? Like they have been making documentaries about this girl.
And this is where incentives matter. Kristen's family lost a person. Courtney could eventually emerge from this case with something that modern attention economy values tremendously. A story everybody wants to hear. Again, that doesn't mean that she'll profit. It means that the system created that possibility. And that possibility itself tells us something about notoriety and how it functions in modern society. Human beings learn from consequences. You don't need to read criminal statutes. You observe who gets punished, who gets forgiven, who gets contextualization, who gets blamed, who receives sympathy, who receives second chances, who gets erased, who becomes famous, who gets a documentary. Those observations become expectations. Expectations influence behavior. Behavior influences culture. Culture influences institutions. Institutions generate new outputs. And those outputs teach people what to expect the next time. That's a feedback loop. For most of human history, criminal courts were not the only mechanism regulating human behaviors. Family did it. Churches did it. Neighborhoods did it. Extended relatives did it. Reputation did it. Older men disciplining younger men did it. Older women disciplining younger women did it. Parents intervened. Relatives intervened. Community elders intervened. This is what social scientists often described as informal social control. And yes, historically, male family leadership often played a major role in that structure. Fathers, grandfathers, uncles, and older brothers. They didn't merely provide money, they communicated norms and consequences. You're wrong. Stop. Leave that person alone. You don't treat people like that. Enough. That system wasn't perfect, but it was a system. Modern society has greatly expanded personal autonomy, and many of those changes were good. Adults should have freedom. Women should have freedom too. People should be able to escape controlling households. But there's a systems question whenever you remove a constraint. What replaces the useful function the old constraint was performing? Family authority weakened. Church authority weakened. Community authority weakened. Reputational control weakened. Individual autonomy increased. But if female accountability didn't increase at the same rate and protective paternalism remained, then you created an imbalance. More autonomy plus less informal correction plus continued protective leniency equals an accountability gap. That's not an argument for controlling women. It's an argument for treating women as full adults. Freedom requires responsibility. You can't say that women possess agency when agency produces education, money, careers, political power, sexual freedom, economic freedom, and social freedom, but then downgrade agency when women make destructive choices. That's incoherent. Rights require agency, and agency requires responsibility. Otherwise, you don't have equality. You have selective adulthood. People often talk about entitlement as though it appears magically. It doesn't. Systems can manufacture entitlement. If rules repeatedly bend for you, you learn that rules bend. If destructive behavior repeatedly receives explanation rather than consequences, you learn to expect explanation or excuses. If someone else is repeatedly made responsible for your choices, you learn externalization. Men do this, women do this, rich people do this, politicians do this, corporations do this, children do this. Behavior adapts to feedback. Before we end, let's remember who the output happened to. At this point, we've talked about systems: gender, race, sentencing, incentives, accountability. But Christian cannot be reduced to a variable in my model. He was a human being, and his mother's statement was probably the most important moment in this hearing.
Attest that he was kind-hearted, compassionate, friendly, and respectful. He cared about other people. I remember one day when Christian and I were driving to a store. I stopped and I was going to give a homeless man a few dollars. Christian encouraged me to do much more than that. It was a small moment, but it showed the kind of heart he had. He saw another human being who needed help, and he wanted to make sure that that person had enough. Christian, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud that I have the privilege of being your mother. Those are the memories that no one can ever take from us and me. Nothing can erase the pain of the day that I buried my son. Nothing can describe what it feels like for a mother to stand at the grave of her child. There are also the things that will never happen for me now that he's gone. The birthdays, the holidays we will not celebrate with him. The conversations we will never have. The person he would have continued to become. Those losses continue much longer after today's court case ends. For more than 4 years, we've lived with the loss every day and waited for accountability. Today closes a legal chapter, but it certainly doesn't close our grief. No sentence, no plea can bring back my son to me. My only hope is to carry his memory forward and to continue healing as a family. My prayer is that after today, Christian will simply not be remembered by the public as a name connected to a criminal case. He was a son, he was a brother, he was a cousin, he was a nephew and a grandson. And he was a friend to a lot of people. He was loved, he had a future, and his life had value and mattered.
That's the human cost. Not 6 years, not 5 years, a life. And then she said something else that connected directly to the systems issue that I've been talking about.
We are very private people. We have endured this loss while much of Christian's life and death have been discussed publicly and inaccurately to support a narrative created by Courtney, the person who took my son's life. There are parts of our grief that belong only to us, and I choose to keep those things within our family. But I want this court to understand this much.
That's narrative power. Who gets to define what happened? Who gets to define who's dangerous? Who gets remembered as a victim? Who gets remembered as a perpetrator? Those classifications matter because classifications affect decisions on both the individual and the systems level. And then the family representative described the relationship and what happened after Christian was stabbed.
April 4th, 2022, Christian Obumseli suffered a painful and tragic death at the hands of the person he loved. Sadly, that would be the person that would ultimately take his life. Christian loved deeply. It was his love that caused him to stay. Even after being previously cut in the face, previously stabbed in the leg by Courtney, he would later write that his love would eventually get him killed.
That's the asymmetry that nobody can repair. Kristen lost every future year. Courtney's punishment is measured in 6. And because of the time already served, she might be out in just 2 years.
As a family, we still cannot get past the fact that Christian was stabbed while you remained on the phone with your mom. You then called downstairs to security, and then your third and final call, which should have been your first call, was the 911. In the meantime, you offered no life-saving measures to try to save Christian's life. To us, that is inhumane. Christian was someone's son, someone's brother, someone's nephew, someone's cousin, someone's friend, and most importantly, he was deeply loved. His life had meaning. He had a future, and his family deserved.
So now let's return back to where we started. 6 years. Florida's aggravated animal cruelty up to 5. Different statutes, different sentencing structures. I understand that, but systems communicate through outputs. And if an outcome leaves people wondering why a negotiated punishment for unlawfully taking the life of a black man sits only at 1 year above the maximum punishment for aggravated cruelty to an animal, then I don't think the answer is to tell people stop comparing numbers. I think the numbers are telling us to inspect the system, because Courtney Clenney isn't really the subject of this video. She's the case study. The subject is, how do we process female violence? How do gender expectations affect agency? How does race affect perceived threat? How do prosecutorial decisions compound? How does sympathy become mitigation? What happens when informal accountability disappears? And what happens when we culturally grant people autonomy faster than we grant them the corresponding responsibility? Women can be victims. Women can also be perpetrators. Those statements do not contradict each other. And recognizing female perpetrators does not diminish female victims. It recognizes female agency. Real equality cannot mean equal freedom, equal authority, equal autonomy, but unequal responsibility. That's not equality. And Christian Obumseli's death leaves us with a disturbing systems output. A man is dead. The person responsible pleaded guilty. The offense exposed her to as many as 30 years. The negotiated sentence was 6. Florida permits up to 5 years for aggravated animal cruelty. And someday soon, she may leave prison, tell this story, and potentially fight for the ability to financially benefit from telling it. So the question isn't simply, was the plea legal? The question is, what does this tell us about the system? Because systems tell you what they value, not only by what they say, but by what they tolerate. 6 years, 5 years, and Kristen never gets another one. That's applied social physics. Don't just watch the sentence. Study the systems that produced it. If you like systems analysis, check out my other videos, consider subscribing, and as always, follow the truth.